Exodus chapter 2. And a man of the house of Levi went and took as wife a daughter of Levi. So the woman conceived and bore a son. And when she saw that he was a beautiful child, she hid him 3 months. But when she could no longer hide him, she took an ark of bulrushes for him, daubed it with asaph and pitch, put the child in it, and laid it in the reeds by the river's bank. And his sisters stood afar off to know what would be done to him. Then the daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe at the river, and her maidens walked along the riverside. And when she saw the ark among the reeds, she sent her maid to get it. And when she opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the baby wept. So she had compassion on him and said, "This is one of the Hebrews' children." Then his sisters said to Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and call a nurse for you from the Hebrew woman, that she may nurse the child for you?" And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Go." So the maiden went and called the child's mother. Then the Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this child away and nurse him for me, and I will give you your wages." So the woman took the child and nursed him. And the child grew, and she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. So she called his name Moses, saying, "Because I drew him out of the water." I just want to tag this text for a few moments, if you will allow me, and preach from the subject, a mother's faith. A mother's faith. If you ever want to see the magnitude of a mother's love and her faith, see her when the life of her child is in imminent danger. If you ever want to see the extent, the depth, the brevity, the width of a mother's love, put her back against the wall as it relates to her children. In 2017, the cinematic screen gave to us the character named Carla Dyson, who on a typical afternoon in the park, her sunshiny day turns into a nightmare when kidnappers snatch her son by the name of Frankie. With no cell phone and no time to wait for police, Carla Dyson, played by Halle Berry, jumps into her car to follow the vehicle that took her son. The pursuit turns into a frantic, high-speed chase. Carla Dyson must decide to risk everything, to push herself to the limit to save her beloved child. And I know today on this Mother's Day that there is a mother in here that has at one time or another had your maternal antennas raised or heightened because you felt your child was not okay or was in danger. You felt that your child was in trouble. Or there may be some mother's daughter here today, or a mother's son in here today. I want to submit to you today that you're still here today because at one time or another your mother sensed that you were in some type of trouble or danger, or it was lying ahead and you did not even know it, and she dropped down on her knees and issued an SOS to God on your behalf. And you're here this morning because your mother prayed for you, had you on her mind, and took the time to pray for you. There are some mothers in here today that understand the magnitude of the love that you have for your children. When your child's life is put at risk, you come out swinging. When your child's life is in jeopardy of danger, you come out praying. When your child's life is threatened, when the street lights come on and you don't see your child on the front porch, you go out and you call their name. And if they don't answer, like a good mother, you go looking. A mother who senses, my brothers and sisters, mothers have what we call maternal instincts. Maternal instincts are the gravitational pull that mothers have to their child's welfare. A good mother does not even have to be in the presence or vicinity of her child to sense something's wrong, but her maternal instincts will cause her to be 500 miles away and sense in her spirit, her maternal instincts, that something with my child just ain't right. It's the instinct that ensures the safety of the child. And we read this morning the book of Exodus, which is in the Greek, the word means to exit. Somebody say exit. To exit or to make a departure. The Septuagint Greek word for Old Testament uses this word to describe the book by its key event. It was noted that Exodus marked and chronicled the great exodus of the children of Israel out of Egyptian bondage from under the bondage hand of the Pharaoh. And while this book shows forth two things for us, a divine redemption and a divine deliverance, we are at the point in the beginning of Exodus where there rose a Pharaoh that knew not the God of Joseph. And at this time, the tribe of Levi has not yet reached the point of popularity, but a man of the house of Levi takes for himself a wife of the house of Levi, and she gives birth to a young son, a baby boy that the text tells us is beautiful. He's a handsome little boy. Of course, every mother in here, when she looks at her child, she describes her child based upon her perception, and she says that he's beautiful, he's a good-looking boy. I don't know no mother that ever gave birth to a baby that said, Lord, my baby sure is ugly. Ain't nobody, no good mother has ever looked at their child, Hunter, and said, Lord, my baby need a little help. No, the text says to us today that the description of the child that was born by the name of Moses is a handsome little boy. He's a good-looking boy, and so is the text tailored to teach us that the young mother, my brothers and sisters, who is giving birth to this beautiful baby boy, gives birth to him during one of the most crucial times in Israel's history, because at this time when she gives birth to him, the Pharaoh has decided that his throne faces potential threat and danger. So to keep from losing his position as Pharaoh, he says that if I allow the Israelites to continue, if I allow the Hebrews to continue to multiply and make babies, then it's a strong possibility that they're going to grow in number and I'm going to lose my position. So to protect my position, I want to kill off every baby that's 2 years and under. I want every child, I don't care how good they look, I don't care what they come from, I want every child to be thrown into the Nile River so that they can die by way of drowning. And this woman, this Levite woman and this Levite man gives birth to their son by the name of Moses at one of the most dangerous times, because no mother wants to give birth to their child and then have to kill their child. No mother wants to give birth and then have to kill their child. Goes without saying that no mother wants to ever have to bury their child. And I know there are some mothers today that can't really celebrate Mother's Day because at some time or another they lost their child. But even in this, we find this woman that instead of going alone with throwing her son into the Nile River, she hides him for 3 months. My brothers and sisters, child of God, she models what we call great faith. Somebody say great faith. Because what she does is she refuses to allow her son, Deacon Brissett, to become a victim of the society or the societal rule that has been issued by the societal leader by the name of Pharaoh. She refuses to let her son become a victim. And I'm sure I got some mothers under the sound of my voice this morning that refuses to allow your children to become a victim of what's going on in society. See, in this text, they were killing off young babies, but in our world we live in, they killing off young men because they understand that when the young man grows up and learns who he really is, that he can be somebody. So to keep our young men from moving to a point of leadership, they do what the Pharaoh did. They do something, they put into order so the young boys won't make adulthood. It's reality. Did you know it? Have you ever watched the news to see how fast our young men are dying? Have you ever watched the news to see the number of black men that are incarcerated? Have you ever walked through the cemetery to see how many young black men occupy graves? Just as well as this Pharaoh was killing them 2 and under, we got a Pharaoh today that's killing them all ages. They dying at 16, they dying at 17, they dying at 5, they dying at 20, they dying at 30. But I believe there's some mothers in here that no matter how old your son or your daughter may be, you made it up in your mind that you're going to do all you can to protect your child. You're going to do all you can to make sure your child has all that comes to them. You want your child to grow up. You want your child to succeed. You want your child to prosper. Is there any mothers in the room that wants their children to grow and be strong? Matter of fact, let me ask this question. Do I got some strong mothers in the room? I guess you ain't no strong mother. I guess you ain't got no vision for your child. But this woman had a vision for her own son, because she wouldn't let her son become a victim of what was going on in the society at this moment. And the first thing this text is tailored to teach us, and I'm going to skedaddle and go to my seat so you can go home and cook your dinner. But number one, this text shows us that she protects her son. Somebody say she protects her son. Here it is, church. She hides him for 3 months. Child does not make, Jackie, a public appearance. For 3 months, the child remains nameless. For 3 months, the child only interacts with his mother and his father. For 3 months, she has to care and provide for her own child. For 3 months, she has to provide in secret. For 3 months, because peradventure the word gets out that she's hiding her son, she runs the risk of her son being put to death, and she runs the risk of her life being in danger. And I'm sure there's a mother in here today that has exhibited protective instincts, because in the violent world we live in, you may not have had the leisure of hiding your child for 3 months. But is there a mother in the room that prayed for your child's protection before they left to go to school? You prayed for your child to make it back home from school. See, we take life for granted, because there are some mothers who send their children to school, but they don't make it back from school. But if you a mother in the room and your child went out and made it back, you ought to wave your hand and tell God thank you, because I sent them out and you brought them back. Every time your child goes out and come back, you better say thank you. You pray protection because your faith told you that the son or daughter that you birthed had greatness on their life. And you were not going to allow anything to prematurely bring their destiny to the end. Some mother prayed a prayer over their son or daughter. You prayed prayers like, Rock of Ages, cleft for me. Let me hide myself in thee. You pray prayers like, Father, I stretch my hands to thee. No other help I know. If thou withdraw thyself from me, whither shall I go? When your child was in trouble, you got down on your knees and said, I need thee. Oh, I need thee. Every hour I need thee. You ought to be glad that you got a praying mother, and you ought to be glad that you are a praying mother. Not only does she hide her son to protect her son Isaiah, but she also preserves her son. Somebody say preserves her son, because the child is linked to the providence of God by his mother's faith. See, you weren't old enough to have faith, so you were provided for because your mother had faith. Let me make it live. You couldn't put food on your table, and it was times your mama didn't know how she was going to put food on the table. But because of her faith, God provided and you ate. It was because of her faith God provided and you were clothed. It was because of her faith that God provided you had a roof over your head. See, you think that these are things that you are entitled to. And the rule of entitlement has ruined this generation of children. That they don't feel that the parents, the mother in particular, is worthy of the honor that she gets, because they feel that she just ought to do these things. But I've learned at an early age, Mama told me after 18, baby, I don't owe you nothing. I guess y'all didn't grow up in a house like I grew up. See, to get rid of the thought of entitlement, we have to teach this generation that everything that has come to you by the privilege of faith. Somebody believed and God rewarded. And this mother exemplifies what we call a faithful mother. Because, watch this, in the midst of a time, Clarissa, when they're throwing their children into the Nile to die, she builds an ark and puts it in the Nile. Now, this mother ain't never, we don't see no record of her going to ark building school. But she's like that Proverbs 31 mother. She's good with her hands. And in order to be a faithful, good mother, you got to be good with your hands. And this woman ain't never been to art school. She ain't, the Bible doesn't list her as a carpenter. It just lists her as a woman of the house of Levi, which is to suggest, church, that there are some skills you develop as mothers. You didn't learn them in school. You didn't learn them in college. You didn't learn them by watching nobody else. Life has taught you some lessons how to take care of your children. Don't you realize that giving birth didn't come with a manual? When you gave birth to your baby, the doctor didn't give you no manual. He didn't give you no manual of how to provide. He didn't give you no manual of how to protect. We thank God for all those things we got now. But when I was growing up and raising my babies with my wife, she didn't have no manual on how to deal with colic. Wasn't no manual how to deal with crying babies. Wasn't no manual on how to do their hair. Wasn't no manual on no effective way to know when they crying, how to understand what was really going on. You just had to have what was called a maternal instinct. She has a maternal instinct. She's good with her hands. So she builds an ark, puts her child in the ark. Sail caused the ark to sail. The ark sails through the Nile. Watch this. When you're a mother of faith, your child could live through what others die in. Y'all making me preach hard, but that's all right. I thought I would have some amens on my front row, but anyway. The child is thrown into the Nile. She puts him in the Nile. Other babies are thrown in the Nile. She puts her son in the Nile. Other babies, Demetrius, have died in the Nile. But this woman's child has lived in the Nile. What am I saying? Saying that when you are a mother of faith, God will protect your babies in situations that other children had to succumb to. And Lord knows we don't want no mother or we don't want no child to die. But thank God yours lived. I said, thank God that yours lived. I said, thank God that yours lived. And if you got a mama, you ought to thank God that you lived. Because there were some things that could have killed you. Some things you should have died in. But you had a praying mother. You had a God-fearing mother. You had a faithful mother. Let's be honest and be real. I need about 10 people. I'll make number 11. But the truth of the matter is, it was my mama's prayers that kept me from hell. It was my mama's prayers that kept me from being on drugs. It was my mama's prayers that kept me out of jail. It was my mama's prayers that kept me off the street. And I want to know today, is there anybody in the room that can thank God for a mother's prayer? Lastly, her faith. She puts her son in the Nile with the thought, I'm protecting him, but there's a strong possibility I won't be able to care for him. She puts him in the Nile to save him, but she does so with the understanding that I might not see him again. But when you are a faithful mother, and you are a praying mother, God will restore your parental position in your moments of sacrifice. What am I saying? What you give up on the front end, God will allow you to reap it on the back end. I'm talking to some mother that had to sacrifice when your children were babies. I come to tell you that what you had to sacrifice and give up on the front end, God always lets you catch it on the back end. Because this mother puts her son in the Nile. And when she puts him in the Nile, she does so not knowing if she will see him again. I'm closing. But on the other side of the Nile, the Pharaoh's daughter, the daughter of the Pharaoh who issued the decree that every son has got to die, his daughter is bathing in the Nile. And while she's bathing in the Nile, Bible says she looks up and there is an ark coming her way. Now, this is the second mentioning in the Bible of an ark. Because the first time we see an ark, it's in the book of Genesis. When mankind has displeased God and he destroys all mankind except for one man by the name of Noah. God used an ark then to preserve his people so that he can reproduce population. But here the second time, God says, I got to use an ark again. Last time I used it so I can reproduce population, but this time I need to use an ark so that I can maintain and protect the next emancipator and deliverer for Israel. Because God knew that Israel was going to need a deliverer. He knew that Israel was going to need an emancipator. He knew that Israel was going to need an Old Testament type of Christ that would deliver the people out of bondage. So Moses was in that ark. And when Moses sailed in that ark, Moses finally arrives at the other side of the Nile. And when he arrived there, Pharaoh's daughter is bathing. And while she's bathing, she sees a baby in the Nile. She gathers that baby out of that ark. And when she gathers that baby out of that ark, the baby is crying. But because she's not the real mother, she doesn't have the maternal instincts. She realizes that this is one of those Hebrew babies. So she says, the best thing for me to do is to go get one of the Hebrew women. But the good news is that she didn't have to go far because Moses was in the Nile. His sister was on the other side and his mother was waving far off. But what she did not realize, that God had already made a way out of no way. Her daughter was on the other side. And when she said to her, should I go get one of the Hebrew women? The daughter already knew that that was her brother. The daughter already knew the mother to go get to nurse that baby. And the Bible says that she went and got Moses' mother. All I'm trying to tell you, and that is because of her faith, she gave God her baby in the Nile, and God gave her back her baby on the other side. All I'm trying to tell you is when you put your child in the hands of God, your hand and say, I thank God because when I couldn't, God took care of my child. When I couldn't, God provided for my child. When I couldn't, God took care of my child. All the nights you did not realize how you were going to make it. It was nobody but God that gave you the resources to take care of your children. It was not your education. It was not your pedigree. It was not what you saw, but it was God that gave you the know-how how to raise your children in the fear and the admonition of God. And I'm here today to tell God, I thank you for a praying mama. I thank you for a faithful mama. I thank you for a mother that believes in the Lord Jesus. When a mother believes in Jesus, you got good news. That is that God will provide. Do I have a witness? Is there anybody on Mother's Day that can wave your hand and testify that he was food on my table? He put clothes on my back. He put shoes on my feet. Is there a mother in the room that can say this morning, if it had not been for the Lord on my side, where would I be? I'd be somewhere in the asylum, somewhere going crazy. But there's a mother in here that can wave your hand and say, God kept me from losing my mind when the child was going crazy. You're a mother. You survived postpartum depression. You're a mother that survived the worst season of your life. But through it all, God has a way of bringing your child to the place where when you gave God your child, God has a way of giving them back. Look at your neighbor and tell your neighbor, say, neighbor, what you give up on the front end, God will reward you on the back end. Be not dismayed, whatever betide, God will. God will take care of you. Good news. Good evening, church. May the Lord bless you real good. But I got another word. If you're a mother and your child has caused you some pain, here's your shout. We've been made endure for a night, but joy. A mother's faith. Your child will make you laugh, and your child can make you cry. Your child can bring you joy, and your child will bring you pain. There's some mothers that got a testimony, my child ain't never made me cry. Just tears of joy. God bless you. God be praised. But there's some other mothers in here can say, my child done pulled on the strings of my heart and made me cry. good news is, whether good or bad, you survived it all. And I don't care how old you are. We all got something in common. None of us would be here if it wasn't for our mama. Whether you know her or have a relationship with her or not, God used her to get you here. So you may not be jumping and running and shouting today because Mother's Day is bittersweet. How do I shout when my mother's gone? How you expect me to rejoice off your sermon when I don't even know who my mama is? How you expect me to be running around the church on Mother's Day and my mother abandoned me when I was a baby? Here's why. She played her part. She got you here. No, you may not have it like other children who have a relationship with their mother. But God used her to do just what he wanted her to do in your life. And that was to get you here. And if your mother got you here, then it's your responsibility to still honor her even though you may not know her or like her. But then I'm talking to somebody whose mother has transitioned, gone to glory. And the Lord shall wipe all your tears. Because while I could celebrate my mom, I'm sensitive because I understand my wife. We lost her mom in 2006. I realize that. I could celebrate my mom, but my mom can't celebrate her mom because she lost her mom in 2022. So it's bittersweet. But even on your bad day, God is still good. Stand to your feet. I'm done. Mother's Day is one of the hardest days in the church. Because you got people that are happy and you still got people that are grieving. But today, I want to introduce you to the mother to the motherless. His name is Jesus. He's the best friend that anyone could ever ask for. Whatever you need him to be, that's what he'll be. And I'm sure if I gave the mic to some of the mothers in here, they can testify. Anybody that's lost their mother, they're no longer grieving, but they're celebrating their life. And today doesn't bring them sorrow, but it brings them, they're still in a place of peace and serenity. And they'll tell you that the Lord has given them strength, and he's given them joy.